What's good? It's Woog. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. We have Joshua Buatsi, 15 wins and 0 losses, taking on Craig Richards, 17 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. This is the next major step-up fight for big-time prospect turned top contender Joshua Buatsi, former Olympic bronze medalist, a very promising talent that is just working up the ranks and is emerging as one of the brighter young talents, or young-ish talents, to be coming out of Great Britain by way of Ghana. And in this step-up fight for Buatsi, Craig Richards has kind of become known as the guy who made Dmitry Bivol look pretty ordinary, or at least more ordinary than Bivol used to look. Bivol obviously just upset the pound-for-pound king, Canelo Alvarez, as Alvarez stepped up from 168 to 175 to challenge Dmitry Bivol for his WBA belt. And so just before that, about 2 fights before Bivol taking on Canelo, Bivol had fought Craig Richards in a fight where Bivol was a huge favorite and actually gave up a couple rounds to Craig Richards. Richards kind of came on strong in the middle to late rounds, and Dmitry Bivol never really posed any sort of a fight finishing threat to Richards. Yes, he was still winning majority of the rounds, but Craig Richards was more or less hanging with Bivol in a way that, Joe Smith really wasn't, Jean Pascal really wasn't, and most of Bivol's opponents really haven't, arguably including Canelo Alvarez. Now, that's not to say that Craig Richards is better than Canelo Alvarez, or that if they were to fight, Craig Richards would beat Canelo Alvarez. But in terms of their individual performances, specifically against Dmitry Bivol, Craig Richards seemed to fight at least as competitively against Bivol as Canelo did. Granted, some of this is based on the expectations going into the fights, where, you would have expected Bivol to completely dominate Craig Richards, and most thought Canelo Alvarez was going to beat Dmitry Bivol. So I won't make too much of that, common opponent for Craig Richards and Canelo Alvarez being Dmitry Bivol. But nonetheless, Craig Richards, if nothing else, has proven to show a good level of composure against even top-tier fighters, even in that loss against Dmitry Bivol. His only other loss to date was in 2017 against former title challenger Frank Buglioni, who had challenged Fedor Chutinov for his regular WBA title. But in this particular fight between Buatsi and Craig Richards, Buatsi is clearly the A-side fighter, although most acknowledge this could be an interesting one. And we've seen Buatsi, take out lower-tiered competitors like Ryan Ford. He beat him when he was, basically defending the international light heavyweight title, some of the lower-tiered belts like the British light heavyweight title. So Buatsi has kind of become one of those regional belt holders, beating guys like Marco Antonio Parabin, the aforementioned Ryan Ford, and then more recently, post, the start of the COVID era, he beat Marco College in October 2020, and then in his 2 most recent fights, beat Daniel Dos Santos, that was in May of 2021, beat him via knockout. In fact, 13 out of Buatsi's 15 wins have come via knockout, so his power is looking pretty immense at this point. And then in his most recent fight, he fought Richard Bolotniks in August of 2021. And actually, in that fight versus Bolotniks, I saw Bolotniks getting off quite a few lead right hands upside Buatsi's jaw and head. Buatsi comes in pretty hot with the jab, and he's looking to throw a lot of power punches behind the jab, both the straight right, he'll throw the sweeping left hook to the body, throw a nice mean right hand to the body, but it's all predicated on Buatsi getting the jab going. But he does carry his hands pretty low, to where veteran Bolotniks, again, landed multiple hard right hands flush on Buatsi. And Buatsi, to this point, has taken the punches well, but that's just a stylistic flaw that I'm noticing at this point. But again, Buatsi's looking like a very good talent, and he's got very good punching power and some pretty good hand speed as well. I would say he's showing good boxing ability, but not unbelievably good defensive boxing ability yet. And then Craig Richards, again, a very composed fighter. He's very patient. He's got a good jab. He's got a very nice right hand. And if I were to point you to another Craig Richards fight besides the one against Bivol, it would be 3 fights ago for Craig Richards against Shakan Pitters. Shakan Pitters is a 6'6" fighter who was a major favorite over Craig Richards. Craig Richards came into that Pitters fight a significant underdog. And again, 6'6", using the jab, and he was looking good early in the fight against Richards, but Richards, again, very composed, very measured, just doesn't seem like he's out of his depths. And he didn't seem that way against Bivol either. So he was patient, kind of jabbing with Pitters, and it's going to be very interesting to see who's winning the jab battle between Buatsi and Richards. But after a while, he started to time Pitters' jab to where even though he was 6'6", and another thing about Craig Richards, he's listed at 6'1", but he seems a lot taller in these fights. Like, he seemed like he might have had a height advantage over Dmitry Bivol, who himself is listed at 6 foot 6'1". But Richards fights pretty high. He doesn't like crouch over a bunch, so he's kind of up here, whereas the 6'6" Shakan Pitters has a wider stance, so he's fighting a little bit shorter, to where Richards and Pitters looked like they were nearly the same height, even though there was a 5-inch height advantage for Pitters. So again, Pitters is throwing the jab, Richards starts to time it, and then throws a very nice right hand over that jab. Ends up knocking Shakan Pitters out. He dropped him in the middle rounds and then finished him in the 9th round. One of the most significant fights of Craig Richards' career. I would say it's probably his best win to date. And again, you could usually tell based on the betting odds coming into some of these fights. If you want a good idea of what the public was thinking in terms of somebody's chances against somebody else, just look at what the betting odds were. Sometimes people will have like a revisionist history on some of these matchups. But again, the money don't lie in most of these cases. So Craig Richards has beaten Shakan Pitters, who again, Shakan Pitters was a minus 714 favorite when the line was announced. And then, you know, the betting odds closed out at Pitters still being a minus 420 favorite, with Richards being a plus 340 underdog. So Craig Richards, again, won that one via 9th round knockout, and he beat Alan Higgins, who started off as the favorite over Craig Richards. And again, Richards beat Alan Higgins via decision. So Craig Richards has defied the odds multiple times, kind of like, you know, Joe Smith Jr., another fighter at light heavyweight who has been underdog for several fights that he in fact won, including the Bernard Hopkins fight, the Jesse Hart fight, the Eliezer Alvarez fight. Craig Richards, again, has defied the odds multiple times as well. So what do I expect between Joshua Buatsi and Craig Richards? I expect Buatsi to be looking to getting that jab going. Again, he's got a fast, hard jab, and his power punches are very hard. But Craig Richards, I expect to be composed, even if he's eating some of the jabs early. I think Richards is going to look to come over the top of Buatsi's jab with that right hand that he was drilling Shakan Pitters with over Shakan Pitters' jab. Now, is Shakan Pitters' jab the same as Joshua Buatsi's jab? No, I'm not saying that it is. But I'm saying that Buatsi throwing that jab repeatedly is going to give Craig Richards ample time to start timing it and to start trying to land something over that jab. So Buatsi is going to be trying to set up the power punches with the jab. I think he's going to have some success early hitting the Craig Richards body. But I think Craig Richards is good enough to start making adjustments. And I do look to Craig Richards to land flush against Buatsi, who again, to this point, is showing a good chin. But I'm not sold on Buatsi's defense just yet. He keeps his hands pretty damn low, especially for somebody who doesn't have like Pernell Whitaker style upper body movement. Yes, he will duck some punches, and yes, he will try to step out of range when his opponent is throwing. But he's not going to have a significant height advantage over Craig Richards here. It's going to be like a half-inch height advantage or something like that. So he's not going to be able to play the distance or range management game against Richards the way that he has been against Bolotniks, against College, against Ryan Ford, and some of his other opponents. I look to Craig Richards to have a good chance at kind of neutralizing the jab battle here. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for who is establishing the jab between the two. I think Buatsi's got the faster jab, probably the harder jab, but I like Richards' timing on a lot of his jabs and power punches. Now, the issue for Craig Richards is sometimes he comes across a little bit too patient. I thought he did against Chad Sugden, who fought Richards to a draw, although I kind of thought Craig Richards deserved the win there. It was an 8-round decision draw, and it was largely because, Richards didn't start opening up until a little bit too late. Sometimes he is a little too patient, and because of Buatsi's insistence on trying to win the early rounds by establishing the jab and getting some of the power punches going behind the jab, I think that Buatsi's going to open up an early lead against Richards, and it might be a case of when is Richards going to really get going against Buatsi. I do think he's going to start jabbing with him and trying to throw power punches, and especially the right hand, over the jab, but I think that that's going to start taking place like in the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds, to where he's going to have a little deficit to come back from on the scorecards. I think that he's going to be competitive with Buatsi. I think he might even hurt Buatsi at some point with a right hand or with another power punch perhaps. But I also think that Buatsi is going to be taking off to Craig Richards' body, and I think he's going to be letting a lot of those power punches go. I don't know how comfortable Buatsi is going to be in letting the power punches go, or if he's going to be more content with winning the fight via jab battle. But I think that this one is going to result in a close but somewhat clear, I'm saying maybe 8 rounds to 4, decision win for Joshua Buatsi over Craig Richards. I think Craig Richards is going to have his moments. I think he's going to win a few rounds, but I do think that he's going to be a little bit more reluctant to firmly put his foot on the gas in the way that Buatsi will seem like he is. I think that Buatsi is going to lead a lot of the attacks, and I think that that's going to go a long way with the judges, especially with Buatsi being the A-side fighter at O2 Arena in London. Now, both of these guys are English fighters, but I think that Buatsi is going to be the one who gains favor with the crowd, and because of Craig Richards' kind of counter-punching, jab-heavy, and patient style, I think it's going to be easier to score Buatsi's initiating of the action. And I think he's going to get some love on the scorecards, to where a close decision win for Buatsi might, to some, look like Craig Richards deserved maybe a draw or even a slight decision win. But I'm going to go with Buatsi via close, competitive decision against Craig Richards. But yeah, let me know what you think about Buatsi versus Richards. I really like this fight. I think that this is a potential trap fight for Buatsi. I wouldn't be surprised if Craig Richards hurts Buatsi, even drops Buatsi. But I would be somewhat surprised if he scores a decision win. I think that for Richards to win the fight via decision, he's going to have to drop Buatsi like multiple times or something like that. And obviously, if Richards stops Buatsi, that'd be pretty huge, and that would obviously elevate the hell out of Craig Richards' name on top of the performance that he had against Dmitry Bivo, where he, again, exceeded expectations. But if Buatsi beats Richards, that will be the biggest feather in Buatsi's cap. This is probably his toughest opponent to date. So yeah, I'm really curious to see how this one plays out, but I'm taking Buatsi via close decision over Craig Richards. Let me know what you think about this one in the comments. If Buatsi does, in fact, beat Craig Richards, do they make the Buatsi versus Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez fight? A lot of people have been calling for it, especially because Buatsi, backed by Matchroom, fights on DAZN. Zurdo Ramirez, backed by Golden Boy, fights on DAZN. It just seems like that one promotionally lines up well, and I would love to see that fight take place. I would probably favor Gilberto Ramirez, even though he gets hit a lot too. And Buatsi's looking like he could really put it on you if he lands cleanly. I just need to see Buatsi fight somebody who can hurt him with their power, because again, I don't like how Buatsi kind of has a kind of a fight stance that is more suited for somebody with with quicker reflexes upper body wise to control the fight defensively. I'm not seeing Buatsi being defensively blessed, to quote the online boxing analyst Richard Dwyer. But yeah, let me know what you think about Buatsi versus Richards in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.